This is what we know, Kristin. As long as we are not putting our money where our values are and investing, no one's going to do it for us. We will always be begging for family. We will be begging for equal pay. And you watch what's going on at a federal level. They're justifying not giving women, taking away any hard-won opportunities.
Welcome to Mike Up, the next chapter. I'm your host, Kristin Guglielmo, and today we're diving into a conversation with someone who has dedicated her career to advancing women leaders, investors, and entrepreneurs. My guest is Julie Abrams, the founder and CEO of How Women Invest and How Women Lead. Through her vision and leadership, Julie has mobilized a global network of more than 25,000 executive women, creating pathways for women investors and champion systemic change in boardrooms, venture capital, and beyond. Julie, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Kristin. I'm super happy to be here.
So let's start with your story. What inspired you to launch How Women Lead in 2021, and how did that evolve into How Women Invest?
You know, it's actually interesting and maybe instructive for people who are listening today. I was in my mid-40s, and like a lot of us, you get to that life stage, your 20s and 30s, your job, and your early 40s, your job is to build a family, build a career, you're driving and building. Then you wake up in your mid-40s and you're like, I'm not willing to sacrifice certain parts of myself anymore, whether it's health or values or, time on things that you don't feel like are serving you. And I had that epiphany. I'd been the CEO of something for 12 years and I was like, I'm done. I did my part. It was a nonprofit bank that, worked with low income women. It was beautiful, but the secondary trauma, just stuff that was just like, okay, I've done this for way too long. I'm really tired.
Yeah. Overwhelmed.
And I needed a break and I took a break, and I just want everybody here to listen like it's normal to take a break and heal so that you can wake up and be excited about the day instead of waking up like, oh my God, I'm doing the same thing I've done for 25 years. And so
Boy, am I hearing you.
Well, I brought a group of women together for a lunch because someone wanted to be in front of some corporate women on the Neuroscience of Teams. That was a book she had written. And I was like, let me get these women I know together. It'll be fun to see people, because I'd taken 18 months off and I got people together and they wouldn't stop talking. The poor woman couldn't talk about her book and they wouldn't leave. And the restaurant was like, you people have to get out of here because lunch hour is over. And I was like, why? And I started to interrogate why. And it's interesting. In our life stage, not only the things I talked about, but you actually need to do things with other women and have an impact to be happy. The other thing that's interesting about this life stage is you actually are starting to feel this pull to align your values and your impact with your life and what you're doing. And the other thing is you need to sort of shift from doing the work to showing up as an expert or for what the influence you can have. And it's hugely impactful if you do it well. And it's just something it's harder to do when you're younger. You don't have all those assets and people you've known. And hey, you need a great CFO. I got someone I can call on, right? So all of this is happening and nobody gave us the roadmap, because you and I, Kristin, and hopefully people who are listening to this, we're the first generation of us. Never before in the United States have we ever had a huge generation of women with the academic, operational, and financial success we've had. We have a level of, it was hard earned and we're tired.
Cool.
But we have a level of power, wealth, and influence never before.
We're ready to help others get there.
Right. And so there's a friend of mine, right when I was starting my organization, she published a book or a little compendium called Middle Essence. And that's the definition of middle essence. It's like the opposite of adolescence. You don't know what you want to be when you grow up. I don't know if you've ever felt that, Kristin, or anyone listening, but that sort of moment of like, what do I want to do now? Especially when you turn 50, you're kind of like, oh my God, what if I'm going to have to live for another 50 years?
I was there 4 months ago when I got laid off from a job that I've done for 33 years. What do I want to be when I grow up? And I absolutely said that.
Yeah. It's a thing. And so So I got women together and I saw this. And the other thing is, if you're a ceiling breaker like you and me, you also mentored everybody. You've also been the only woman in the room often. Hopefully it's resonating with people who are listening. And you actually might not. I woke up in my mid 40s. I was like, I actually don't have, I have, I have friends that I've known forever, but they don't get me because they've never run anything. They're my, whatever, the friends who do quilting or whatever their thing is, right?
Yeah. The ones that you're jealous of a lot of times when you're
I know.
working like a
I
dog.
wish I could follow K-pop bands around the world and get joy out of that, but I think that would be hard for me to want to do too long. So you actually need your people. And if you don't, and that's the work you need to do right now in this life stage. So I would learned all this. And I, in fact, did a research study on the investing behavior of women because there was all these myths that weren't aligning with what I experienced with my friends. Like, wait, these women made a lot of money. They're not scared of money. They don't have any time. They want to align their investments with their values and they don't want to screw it up. So they're sort of risk aware, but not risk averse. And what happened is I started getting women together and people were like, do this again and I'll bring 5 friends. And of course I was, I understood the human need. Yeah. Well, and this network effect, if you will, right? And so the other thing that was interesting is, here we are. And I was like, I can't be vapid. I want to hang out with you, but after a while, like I got to get stuff done. It's part of the sickness of, my generation, my kids say. But I was like, we need to accomplish things in that sense of doing things with other women and having an impact. So we got together and I was like, all right, let's pass a law on public company board diversity and get women on boards. I know a bunch of women on public company boards. Let's place women on boards. Let's make sure. And I want every woman listening to this podcast, I want you to know there's very, very likely a board that would benefit from you at some level in some way. And you just need to understand what is the right level and how do I present myself in my value proposition? And then how do I network and get there? I just think a lot of these things have felt mysterious for other people, for men in our lives. And I just demystifying it for this generation of us that are breaking some of these leadership areas. And so I started How Women Lead with that. And that is sort of part of the leadership journey focus. But in 2020, because I'd ran a type of a bank and helped women start their own businesses and finance them, I was like, you know what? There's only 2% of venture funds that go to companies founded by women. That's ridiculous. I know all these women with money. They get the business cycles. And in fact, a lot of them would love to, be on the boards of these companies because 60% of private companies don't have a single woman on their board. So why don't I start a venture firm? And we did it really quickly. We raised $10 million in a couple months and then we did it again. And then I'm doing it a third time. And we're really trying to disrupt who gets the money and who's in the leadership positions. Because this is what we know, Kristin. As long as we are not putting our money where our values are and investing, no one's going to do it for us. We will always be begging for family leave. We will be begging for equal pay. And you watch what's going on at a federal level. They're justifying not giving women, taking away any hard-won opportunities.
And how about menopause?
Yeah, no kidding.
That's a new one that they're looking at, maybe helping women at our age or taking care of your parents.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting thing when you look at medical research. It wasn't until the mid-90s that they actually said, maybe we shouldn't think of women as just small men. We should actually do scientific research on women's health and women's bodies, because Ambien was the big thing. Do you know about the Ambien story?
Yeah.
You do. Okay. Well, for everybody listening.
No, it's everyone. No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, basically, Ambien was studied on men and it helped them sleep. Yay. Well, women metabolize Ambien at half the rate that men do. So all these women were being prescribed Ambien and they were waking up and falling asleep when they were driving to work and getting in car accidents and all this other stuff. And literally because it was never tested on women. And so very dangerous things can happen if we don't get this right, not to mention women's specific health needs. Absolutely. And so
there's been a bias there forever. There's been a bias there forever.
Yeah. So in the mid-90s, it started to be mandated that you got to actually consider women in the equation. And right now, today, we're seeing massive slippage of that. But the other thing is there are stupid things like a stupid menopause report. This is why you reminded me of this. That said that, and it was not based on any science. It was absolutely just like someone making observations. Said that people were more likely to get cancer if they took estrogen, hormone replacement. Now we know it's been debunked, but it wasn't. You still will go to your OBGYN and they'll tell you that silliness. You actually have to go to a special provider. I actually went to this company called MIDI, MIDI, and it's great. They get you and they don't have to explain it. Yeah, MIDI, MIDI, amazing. And so I just think for all of us, like, it's time to wake up. Big Brother's not going to do it for you. We need to invest in the companies that we want to see. We need to raise our hand and say, I'm not going to just give you advice. You can put me on your board. We need to start to step into the power and influence that we've earned, hard earned. And the whole society is better. Like, companies perform financially better when women on their board. Product recalls happen 3 times faster. Like, this is life-saving stuff I'm talking about. So it's not just what's just, which I believe in justice, but that's not the only reason. This is a financial imperative. And if you want to create jobs and you want women to actually have a fair shake and not be, frankly, women are getting sick. I don't know if you've ever seen Deepa Purushotham's work, but, all these women of color in particular in their mid 40s and early 50s have to leave the work because they got sick from working in those environments that were not designed for them. So yeah, it's time. We have the money. We have 52% of the wealth. There's no reason we can't do it.
Right.
So, that was my inspiration. That was a long answer.
Why do you think that number has been so low, stubbornly low? I mean,
I know very well, there are structures and beliefs that are absolutely problematic. So everyone listening to this, this in your bones. Men are hired, promoted, and invested in for their potential. Women are hired, promoted, and invested in for what you've done. And if you're brown or black, you have to have proven it multiple times because they think it's an exception the first time. What the upshot of that is, how they say women don't ask for the raise or they won't apply for the job if they don't have all the qualifications. Yeah, no kidding. It's actually cultural. We're not stupid. Of course, we'd apply if we thought that we wouldn't get our hands slapped and someone would act like, who do you think you are? But that's literally what has happened our whole lives. And so that happens in work environments, but it also happens in the investing landscape. So men, the documentation is very clear. They're asked, how big can this get? How exciting can this be? There's an assumption that between the guy and the VCs, they're going to figure it out. But with the women, they're like, show me. I want to see your credentials. I want to see everybody in your team. Show me you mitigated every potential risk that there ever could be in the planet. That doesn't inspire anybody. That's not exciting. And it certainly is problematic it just makes it so you get less investment. And then, so here's the transformation. Here are the numbers. I'm going to start with the boardroom. There were only 10% women on public company boards in 2010. There was 34% by 2022. So in just 12 years, we more than tripled the number by doing the things that we've done. In the venture space, there were only 12 women-run venture funds in the United States of America in 2010. Today, there are 380, Kristin.
Wow.
So we now have a market. It's new, but it is a market, and it is outperforming. Every single study, irrefutable, women return 35% more for their investors, like women founders. And then the venture capital firms run by women produce better returns. They're at the very top of the heap. But we still, in our biased brains, they're called limited partners, either individuals with money or institutions like a foundation or a pension fund that have to invest money in different assets. They'll invest in venture funds, but they look at the guys and they say, well, he's safer because I know him. He's been around longer. And the market for women-run venture firms, for example, is younger. But regardless, this bias about men and their potential and men as being this, the model of who we think is the safe, successful business person is supposedly some white guy over 6 feet tall.
Yeah. I've spent my 33 years, as the only woman in the room.
You get it. You
I
get it.
get it completely. I get it completely. And, you know, you have to speak up. You have to have your seat at the table, even though it's uncomfortable a lot because you are in that situation. So yeah, we have to. Yeah.
And we blame women, and we like, there's a couple, there were a couple women older than me, for example, that they were some people, okay, they were ballers. Like, I don't know a better word to say, but like they were really like, they were in it. And some of them think, oh, it's a meritocracy. Just be like I was. And it's like, no, we shouldn't all have to be like that.
No, I don't
And
want to
that's
do.
not healthy. And furthermore, it's not a meritocracy. You were the absolute 0.1%. So anyway.
So how is How Women Invest disrupting the reality and changing the pipeline of who gets funded?
Yeah. Well, so for one, just like we did in the Women on Board space, we're driving a law right now that we think is about to pass. I want every woman that's listening here, if you have at least do you have $25,000 in your retirement funds? Of course you do. You must, if you're a grown up. And you have enough money to invest in some venture firms. So it's not inaccessible. I just think most of us think it is. And, you have to be an accredited investor, which just means nobody accredits you. You have to, make $200,000 a year or 300 as a household, or have $1 million in savings outside of your primary residence. So it's, that is a barrier for some people, of course, but for a lot of people, they just never felt invited. It feels mysterious. So I want to do what we call movement building, which is making sure everybody knows. The other thing is, in my firm, we have 600 women investors in our 3 funds. We only invest in companies founded by women with no male co-founders. Why? Because they outperform. They return 35% more. The other thing, so that's part of it. The other thing is women, when they start their companies, over the last 20 years, they've been told you have to have a male co-founder or you can't raise money. You're not going to be successful. I'll tell you that is very bad for her. 3 years down the road, when you're successful, they start to attribute it to the man. And he may literally not even be an operator. He might have just been brought in to be window dressing, right? And they start to say, well, aren't you cute? You got it started, but now it's time for the grown-ups to run it. And we're going to bring Jeff in and he'll just be the CEO and you can be the head of HR.
Yeah, well, there was plenty of times in my business where they wanted to talk to the owner, and I'm like, I am the owner.
Thank you.
Hello, I am the owner. So if you'd like to talk to me, I'd be very happy to talk to you.
Well,
But there's no one else, just me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I love it, Kristin.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, so I am very clearly very clear about where I stand in the world. The other thing that we need to do is we need to actually help these 380 women-run venture firms get larger. And because a lot of them are so small, they're not sustainable. There's not enough, there's a fee structure on it. Like there isn't any investment and the fees are too small on, as a percentage, you can't pay yourself. And so part of what we need to do is, in addition to getting more women as investors, we also need to get rid of the bias in some of our institutional structures that look at the 6-foot-tall white guys and think that he's a safer financial investment when that is not even remotely true. So we got our work to do. And I'm also trying to build what they call a fund of funds, which would mean $1 billion that we would put into women-run venture firms. So anybody out there who's listening who feels jazzed about this as a mission, let me know. I would love your ideas about how to move this market, because we have no time. We gotta move, because this world is looking scary for women right now.
Well, and every woman has to have their own money. And I always tell my daughter and any young women who come into my life that are in my son's life, don't ever depend on anyone but yourself.
Well, the other thing is, money is a power play if you manage it well. Think about this, everybody listening. If the next networking event that you went to, you said, yeah, I invest in venture capital, how would that change how people respond to you? Would they think of you as more powerful, more innovative, a player? Will they assign certain knowledge or access to you? I want to just say, like, it could be well worth you taking the time to check it out and to move some resources into private assets, because it actually can help you on your board journey and other things and your career trajectory. And it's also super freaking fun. If you find a
That
venture
sounds
firm,
very interesting.
oh yeah, it's so fun, Kristin. If you find a venture firm like mine, right? Every month we have 3 or 4 companies come and pitch, and people get to hear these innovations and meet these PhDs and these super nerdy or super cool and fun and hard driving women. I mean, it's a blast to see all the things they're innovating in.
Yeah, and it sounds like amazing, because you're just so impressed with what they're doing or what they've done.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and if you're like, I'm really concerned about the impact of AI without women and people of color's voices, blah, blah, blah. Well, then let's go fund a bunch of women agentic AI companies. And that's what I'm doing.
And we need to make sure that women know how to use AI, which is part of my mission as starting my business. Is I want to have events. I was in the nonprofit world in my insurance industry since at least 2017. So that's really where I focus my time. So I want to give back to the nonprofit sector some way with AI, either somehow implementing it in their organizations, or helping with donor engagement, whatever it is. But that's where I'm kind of, and I want to be able to teach these employees and who's there that needs to know AI, where everyone should really know something, because I've been told 80% of women's jobs could be gone. And I don't know if that's really true, or they're going to be changed. And if you don't,
what's that? My job has changed. Everybody's jobs are changing, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah. And if you don't change with it, that's where you're going to have a problem.
Yeah, no question. Well, the other thing that's interesting is, all kinds of things are happening that open up opportunities. Like, I'm sure you heard about, like, or maybe your internet slowed down, like the AI, the storage, energy storage, et cetera. We've got a big infrastructure need now with this. So hence, there's one of the companies we invested in called Silvatex that literally uses biofuels, which is like, the equivalent of like a corn husk or whatever, right? To create the plus side in a battery, but also for battery storage. And this is like, think about it. This is a woman chemist. She's in it. And all the guys went out of business because they got such big investment dollars. And then there's been a slowdown in mergers and acquisitions, which means there's not enough liquidity in the market. Sorry to go nerdy on you. But what ended up happening was these guys didn't get their next infusion of investments and they went out of business, and she survived because women are more capital efficient and performance driven.
I never had kind of credit my whole 25 years, never needed it. Now, someone said that wasn't smart, which I did get one eventually in case, but again, I never used it because I managed my money.
Right.
And you save those moments when you don't know if it's going to be.
Right. Well, and ultimately the survivability of your company and you as a leader is much longer. So there's very good news out there. So especially when you're feeling depressed and frustrated with what's going on a national level, take action. This is what I tell my kids. It's like, donate to someone, take action, do something. Because if you just sit there and fret and don't take action on something that might move the world towards what you care about, that's a recipe for more stress.
Yep, absolutely. So you've built a network of 25,000 plus women leaders. How does the collective power of the community help move the needle in ways individual efforts can't?
Well, we've come together to pass laws, for one. The other thing is, getting a lot of these power things, like getting on a corporate board. It's all about networks, and you can't do it by yourself. And just because you learn something or take a class doesn't mean someone's going to go knock on your door and say, here's my golden platter for you. You need to leverage and use these networks. But the other thing is, as I said earlier, you're happier if you're having an impact in doing things with other women. Also, like a venture firm is a collective. It's a bunch of investors all believing in a thesis. and driving towards, to make more money by investing in a certain type of company. And you can be a part of that. And to me, all of us doing it together is the way to win.
What role does mentorship and sponsorship play in helping women led companies and women investors thrive?
There's a big difference between mentorship and sponsorship.
There is.
So a mentor is somebody who gives you advice, and kind of helps you think about whether it's your career or, personal, right? A sponsor is someone who's like, when you're not in the room, Kristin, when I say, what would be great for that role or that board or that project? It's Kristin. She's your gal. That's what sponsorship means. And it means I'm actively promoting you and your career success, as opposed to just saying, Kristin, you might want to, think about how you present this kind of story or whatever that advice, mentoring advice. Yeah.
We don't have to, in this situation, we're not having to prove ourselves. We, I don't know the way to put it.
They say women are over mentored and under sponsored.
Yeah.
And the reality is,
as women, we need to sponsor each other.
Well, Kristin, I was just about to say the reality is most historically men have been bigger sponsors of women. I think in some ways women are taught there's scarcity and they're still focusing on their own deficit of career trajectory or whatever. And it's harder for them to send the ladder back down. I just gave an award to this woman. Her name is Maggie Wildrotter. Unbelievable story. 27 when she got on her first board. The company went public. So she was on a private company board, a public company board. Like she did it all, and mergers and acquisitions. Like she kind of did it all within 2 years. And she and her sister were the only sibling CEOs of public companies at the same time. Like she's just like storied life. Right. And she's, older than I am at this point. So, she's helped 700 women get on boards. And she is absolutely fierce and unabashed about saying, I require that people who I help say they're going to help other people. And she's like, one hand should be breaking the glass ceiling and climbing up the ladder. The other one should be pulling someone up behind you. And I think that is not something that a lot of women who kind of were growing up in the scrappy environments necessarily embraced. But the other thing is, at How Women Lead, I established a credo, which is a cultural narrative that we all agree to. And in fact, there's no membership fee, but you have to commit to the credo. You have to be fierce advocates for other women, and which is the opposite of the culture of mean girl behavior. So tearing other women down has to stop. Absolutely. Literally full stop. You cannot do that and live in integrity anymore. No. And talking about other people, tearing them down. And it takes a lot to unlearn those bad behaviors. We grew up in the culture that did that.
Well, it takes a lot. It takes a lot for that person who was criticized to get that out of their head too.
We've all experienced it. I mean, everybody listening here, were you really immune from this? I would be stunned. Yeah, we walk into a networking event and you're like, will I be accepted? Are these people are gonna, how am I going to, I've, walked into events and you feel like, I'm like, oh, I think I'm too big for these people, or I'm too whatever. I'm too something, you know?
And yeah, been there too.
Yeah. I mean, these are the things that are common human experiences. If you name them and if you commit to doing the opposite, and we all agree, there's a magic glue that happens and people fall in love with How Women Lead and never want to leave the network because of the way we commit to each other. We also ask you to say yes to helping each other. We ask you to reinforce her voice when she speaks up. So everybody listening to this podcast should send it to 5 friends. That's how we reinforce the voices of other women. And then finally, we ask you to be unabashedly visible. So raise your hand, take up space, get your voice out there. Those are the things that I think are so essential for all of us.
So you structured your work around education, coaching, investing, disrupting, champion. Which of those areas feels most urgent right now?
This is the thing. Every one of us is in some kind of, we're concerned and in psychic pain in the United States. get into action and do something about it. Don't sit around and wait. And you can do something very simple. You could donate, you could invest your money aligned with your values. You can even just go look at your public stock portfolio and make sure you're not accidentally investing in munitions. If you're concerned about gun violence, you may very well be investing in the whole infrastructure of what is fueling gun violence, and not knowing it because it's hidden in a mutual fund product someone else chose. There's climate. You might be investing accidentally in fossil fuels if you care deeply about climate, or private prisons. If you're concerned about what we're doing to Black and brown men in particular and boys, then you might be investing in private prisons, and you might not. Might need to say, I want to get out of this. So there are things that you can do today, and it feels so good. It's not like you did a massive lift, but to readjust things so that you're more aligned with your values is going to help you emotionally. So I'm concerned about your emotional health, and I also want to encourage you to get together with other women and act. It'll make you happier.
Yeah. So the new table movement, you have to tell me about it because I don't even know what it's. Can you share what it is and why?
100%. So I started my first fund, and 600 women invested with me for the first time they've ever invested. Well, within a year, 30% are investing in 2 and 3 other venture funds. And I was like, they got the bug. They get it now. They need it. We need to demystify it, and then they would get in the game. But sometimes I was like, don't invest with him. So I was like, all right, I better. And a lot of women run venture firms that are young, right? I mentioned that it's a new market, especially women of color. They're like, I don't know how to find these investors. And I was like, well, I have 25,000 women in this network. Why don't I say to every woman, hey, I want to encourage you to start investing in venture capital. And here are 60 women-run venture firms. You can find one that might be aligned with your values. And there's a values-based platform. I don't make any money. There's no money that even goes to the nonprofit that we run. It is just something that, you can go. It's a research tool for you. It's an inspiration, movement building, and research opportunity for you. So you have access. You can find someone 100% aligned with what you care about.
That's amazing. So on a personal note, what has been the most rewarding story or outcome that you've witnessed since, you started this organization?
Well, I feel like I get it every day, so it's hard to pick. But maybe I'll give you one from a while back that is really, really sweet. This might be a little hard to hear, but I did this microenterprise and microfinance organization. So women would start jewelry businesses or restaurants or whatever, right? And that's not venture backable. That's a different kind of investment, right? But we would do loans for them. And I was in my office one day, and this woman came in, and she was sex trafficked. At 8 years old, her mother died. Her father, probably not realizing what he was doing, he basically sold her to a dentist in Chicago, and she was from like Costa Rica. So she lived in this guy's garage when was abused and had 3 children and by herself until he died. Nobody found her, and she wasn't free. So horrible story. So think about how much education and opportunity she had, like to go work in somebody. No. So the best she was going to do was start a little thing and try to live a life of dignity. Right. So we gave her 2 loans and she paid them back. And I just remember this day she came in and she's like, I'm applying for another loan from you. And I was like, and she's literally like, was just so emotional, felt so vulnerable asking. And I was like, you've paid back 2 loans successfully already. And this is a no-brainer for us. And she got on her knees and just started weeping, and that has so much more to do with just her whole entire historical story. And the idea that someone would believe in her, trust her, entrust her.
Give her the benefit of the doubt.
Right. And, I know that seems extraordinary, and I'm not suggesting everybody needs to be able to do that. But I'm talking about, I think that was a $5,000 loan. This was not something that was, changing, it was huge amounts of capital. There are so many ways that any one of us could impact someone's life. People tell me all the time, they're like, because for some weird reason, I meet people and I'm like, of course you can do this thing. Like it's like a weird thing. I believe in everybody, right? I guess it's my superpower. But people will say to me, I never believed I could do this thing until you said you could see it. And I've been able to accomplish it. Just being that mirror for someone and encouraging them and seeing their potential instead of fueling their fear and telling them being part of the fear cycle, it opens up the world for so many women. And people thank me for years and years to come, which feels pretty freaking good.
Yeah, that is amazing. So now what's the next chapter for how women invest and how women lead?
Well, our third fund is $100 million vehicle, which is kind of big. So that's a biggie. And it means a whole different kind of game and how we're doing it. But ultimately, I want to get $1 billion to women founders. And so I'm on the road because this is our third fund. So the next is I'm trying to drive $1 billion to other women-run venture firms. So if on average over, a couple years, you invest $100,000, we can get 10,000 women, and we've already gotten 2,000 to be part of the new table. If we can just get 10,000 women, it's like you and 10 friends to start investing in women-run venture firms, we will double the amount of money going to women founders. Double. It would be that easy to do it, and there's no reason we can't. And then the third part of this, so it's 3 billion is my vision. The third part is I'm building something called a fund of funds to help mature the ecosystem. So these larger, more successful women-run venture firms are still tiny in comparison. So if I can both put 20% of their whole if I can put 20 million or 40 million into their fund, and then I could bring other investors in, we can mature the whole ecosystem. And as a result, start thousands of women-run companies with real money. So instead of Google and Apple and Facebook being started and run by people who may not be looking out for you and creating cultures where we can thrive, or they'll go, get weak in the knees and go kiss the ring at the, when the monsters say stuff. Sorry, but just saying, like, I would rather, Kristin, you be running Facebook of the future. So, or your daughter, right? So there's nothing stopping us except our will and commitment and ability to have the confidence to say, yeah, I'm going to look into this and I'm going to actually inspire 10 other people to do the same thing. Yeah. That's my,
just having that, knowing having the confidence to say, you know what? And even if you fail, you know what? My saying is you're never going to fail unless you don't try.
Yeah.
So if you don't try, you failed already. You failed already if you don't try, basically.
Amen.
So,
and if you're in your 40s, if you're in your 40s or up, you need to do something to have an impact on the world, or you're not happy. And there's no amount of buying cute shoes or taking trips that's going to fill that black hole. You have got to start to move towards things that are going to make the world a better place in order to feel like you're fulfilled as a person.
Absolutely.
It's just a human need. Thank goodness it is, because they always say the grandmothers historically have been the ones that moved the culture forward in major ways. Because when you're younger, you're so focused on, I gotta protect my family. I want to build a family. I want to find the partner. Whatever that is you're building, right? But it's the grandmothers have the spaciousness. I say that and I'm not a grandmother yet, but that spaciousness to actually say, let's change things. Let's create a new structure. Let's do things that are better for the world. So let's put on our protective hats and make the world a better place.
So for women listening today, whether they're executives, founders, first-time investors, what's one step they can take right now to join this movement?
Well, at How Women Lead and How Women Invest, there's something for you. And so go on the website and you can sign up for a leadership journey call, and you'll get the whole picture, and you'll get to do a self-assessment and figure out what's right for you. We want every woman to know and to start taking action. And there's a board that's right for you. There's an investment opportunity that's right for you. Even if it's something small, like buying a $30 share in the WCEO index or the ETF. Like, it's a liquid tool. You can buy it today and sell it tomorrow. Like, there's so many things that are options for you. You just need to start looking into it and take action. It's not inaccessible.
Okay, so I'm going to have a couple rapid fire questions. What is the book that's currently on your nightstand?
There's this, if anybody here has seen a book called Forces for Good, this is a book about how do you move markets and make change in the world. I love that book and I'm reading it again. So, and if you think about starting your own company, this is so interesting. Somebody I know, Coco Selman, just published a book, and I think she's in it today, called Force for Good. So, and it's about starting companies and building companies that are a force for good. So, not nonprofits, like for profit. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. One leader, Mr. President, that you'd like to share dinner or coffee with, or tea or wine.
Well, there's this woman, her name is Evelyn Dilsaver, and she's just one of the most solid, thoughtful public company board directors that I've ever met. And I just admire and adore her. And if I could, she doesn't live close to me, but if I could have dinner with her and just talk about, she was a ceiling breaker, first woman in the room. She ran Charles Schwab's mutual funds companies in the 2000s. She was like the only woman on a floor of all men. So yeah, Evelyn, Filipina woman, didn't go to Harvard, like went to, a state university kind of thing, Cal State East Hayward, I think. So, like people who that's not the path you think, right? It wasn't a silver spoon.
So I like this one. What's your go-to song when you need confidence boost? Do you have?
I mean, and there's plenty of the songs that I would just say are like, girl power songs that I feel like
and I can't remember the name now, but it's like you're the girl on fire. Maybe that's what it's called.
Yeah, or Beyonce. Yeah, like those kinds of songs where it's just like, amen, that's me. Yeah.
No, that's great. So one word used to describe the future of women in venture capital. Or two.
Well, innovation, alpha, impact.
Okay. I like that. Innovation, alpha, impact. All right. Julie, thank you for joining us and for sharing your wisdom, your vision. Your work is creating not just opportunities for women today, but lasting change for generations to come.
Kristin, thank you for your leadership.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. For our listeners, if you've been inspired by what you've heard, howwomenlead.com to learn more, connect with this powerful network, and find your place at the new table. This has been Mike Up, the Next Chapter. I'm your host, Kristin Guglielmo. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, let's keep moving past disconnected systems and building a future where women back women and every wins. Yay! Let's go, ladies.